Well, my name is Asta Williams. I was born in the, well, not really in the immediate town of Frederickstead. I was born at Estate Concordia, uh, just before you get into the town of Frederickstead. Because those days they had midwives. Then the ambulance will take you. The one ambulance that they had would take you into the town of Frederickstead. But by the time they came to my mom, I was out. So naturally, I was born on the estate, and then with a midwife who came, and they took me and my mom to the hospital where usually in those days they kept you for 9 days before they let you go. So Estate Concordia was the place where I was born, just like I said, outside of Frederickstead, just before, after you pass right across from the Estate Wimgrid House. Frederickstead is my heart. I don't think I've lived in Christiansted for a period of time. Have nothing against Christiansted people, because two of my sons was born in the area of Christiansted. But we are laid back in Frederickstead. We're a kind of a different type of people in Frederickstead. We're, like you said, that's where Queen Mary and all the fireborn started out. So we have that energy in Frederickstead, and you'll hear people saying, even when we were going to school in Christiansted, I know who made the trouble. It was those Frederickstead people. I'm not going to say who the teacher was, but he used to say that the people from Frederickstead was always the one, but it was not always so. But we are an energetic set of people that live down there, and I'm saying I'm proud to be part of the Frederickstead scenario. Uh, we used to go to the beaches a lot. You walk to the beaches. Now beaches are owned by so many different people. You walk the street barefooted. You had a lot of stores. Now Frederickstead is all closed off to don't have the bakeries, and they don't have the things that I grew up with. Um, you could have find a decent place to eat and food that you're accustomed to at home. We had standpipes on the street where you get your water to wash and to do whatever, whether clean up your floor or whatever. Another thing that I see that sometimes they had ovens in the yard where they bake for the churches when they have bazaars and stuff like that. Some of them are taken out. The wells on the side, people used to go there and get water. So it used to be camaraderie where everybody lived together. Everybody knew each other. Everybody visited. We shared with each other. And even so, my mother still had friends in Christians then. So, like on Sundays, I'm talking about, we had one bus that if you miss the bus, you either walk or catch a ride. So, when you have to visit family in the town of Christiansted, you have to start early. And so, if you didn't start early, you either went back home or you do it another day or another holiday or something. I remember visiting my uncle who lived in Estate Diamond, and we had to walk from Frederickstead to Diamond, because if the bus, the guy's name was Alexander Seaman, we used to call him Alec. If we missed Alec bus, we missed it. We had to walk if we wanted to visit our family, and that's another thing. We visited with our families. Our children knew each other, families, whether they live in the country, different part of the country. And when you leave the town and you go into the country in the Sunday or holiday, you walk with bread and something that they didn't have. Because when you coming back, they grow things. And you coming back with like tanyas and pumpkin. I mean, you loaded down with the food. And if they had animals, naturally, you're going to have a piece of pig or some goat or whatever they had or they raised. Now, in the town, remember, they had a lot of stores. And so, therefore, you would take from the town to the country and from the country back to the town. But we visited. I used to visit with my grandmother who lived in Estate Diamond. And my father had lived in St. George's across, and my aunt. And my mother made sure that I visited them and knew who they were. Today, people don't know who their family are. Because some children, I have children that say after the third generation, after the sister and brother, children, they stop right there. They're not going, you're not any cousin anymore, but I wasn't like that. When I was growing up, you carried as far and as far back as that you could remember. So that's a lot of love was the sharing and the caring, and Christmas time was a splendid time because I remember my mother living in the Nesbitt's yard, and that month of Christmas, Miss Nesbitt, she's deceased for quite a while now, she would say, well, hold the rent. Which landlord going to tell you today, hold the rent and buy something for Christmas? You will never hear that. So they want the money too, right? So that's a lot of love that was shared. The bakers, they will give you something to take home if they bake cake or Johnny cake, so that you have for the Christmas and things like that. So, like I said, it was a lot of camaraderie. We'll be introducing some of the songs that was from long, long ago. And the first one that we'll be singing is Miss Lucy. And I'm sure a lot of people who have lived as long as I, and even though Bully could be my son, he knows it too because he grew up in that era. So now we'll start. Miss Lucy and the Well, here I am again talking about my favorite thing, masquerading, because that's what I do. Right now, I'm the not the owner, but the leader or the person in charge of the Western Masqueraders. At first, I used to dance with Miss Amy Gill. She had masquerading, and I joined her masqueraders. And then a few years later, she said that something happened and she was not going to continue doing the masqueraders troupe anymore. We had donkeys and other stuff on the Wild Indian group masqueraders, because there's many different type of masquerading. Growing up as a child, we had, I remember my uncle who was doing David and Goliath. You had it was a biblical part of it, where the same Sharon that passed away, Sharon Brown, her father being a very tall man, he used to be Goliath. I remember the drummers, the fife, and the players, because it was a biblical thing. And you had the group for David, and you had the group. Mostly it was just David alone, if I remember. And then you had Goliath with his group of men. And they would they would beat the drum, they would go downtown, and then they'll stop to a certain place, and then they'll perform. Where David and Goliath would talk to each other about what's going to happen, and Goliath will be laughing after David with his slingshot. And then the drum will roll, and I don't think Mr. Peterson or any of you have seen it, but I have seen it because I mean, I'm much older than all of you here, even Mr. Peterson. And that's out of the session right now because people don't do that anymore. They didn't have saxophone and guitar and all that. Mostly was it just the fife and the kettle drum and the snare drum. They make good music. And they would have, that's another thing. That we had the Flowers Girl, then we had the May Queen Girls. The Flowers Girl was our dress and the dancing Maypole also. And then you had the Flowers Girl was be all in dress up in flowers. So those are the things. Then you had, which I talked about, who we were scared of was the Wild Indian. And there was not a group of Wild Indian, I keep telling people. It was not a group of Wild Indian. It was never a group of Mokojumbis. It was always one. When I grew up, it was one, single one. We didn't know who they were. Most of them were fishermen and there wasn't young people, but they could have danced, they could have played music, and they were very agile. They were very strong on their foot. They could have danced and shake and scare the dickens out of children. So when you behave bad, they didn't say, I'm going to call the cops for you. They would call the Mokojumbis for you because we didn't know who they were, even though they were people like us. Your parents didn't say who he was, who he was. Even if he was next to you, you wouldn't say this is a Mokojumbi. Like people, when I'm dancing, which I said before, when you're undercover and you're under mask, people shouldn't be shouting out at you. You know, if they say it one time and you acknowledge them, but you shout out all the time because you won't hear them. Because that's the tradition. The tradition is you never know, let people know. Even if they know, you never let them know who you are. You cover yourself, foot, hand, everything. As I was saying, I wear bracelets, so I cover these up. I wear long sleeve when I'm dancing. It's kind of hot. They used to use the baller bag. I don't use that anymore. It is too hot. I don't want anybody fainting away because I have fainted away. It gets too hot. The climate gets very, very warm these days because the sun is closer to the earth. So I get cotton material and I make it as light, but I do the pitchy patchy. And also, why that came about, besides the lady, Miss Gill, who I danced with, then we had the Western Reunion. And with the Western Reunion, then I started another group of my masqueraders from out of that group. So Western Masqueraders is where come from Western Reunion. This is another song, Sardine.
Okay, bad Sardine.
This is another song that we learn as children also. And like I said, Mr. Peterson Bully, affectionately known as Bully, he grew up also learning this song because that's all we heard. We didn't hear reggae and all those things. So we'll be singing for you Sardine Pan. Some people say sardine tin, sardine, all kind of thing, but we're going to sing it as Sardine Pan. Wash your face in a sardine pan. Okay? Ready? Wash your face in a sardine pan. You wash your face in a sardine The children, when masquerade day, when the holidays, because it was special holidays, it was Whit Monday, Easter Monday, It was Christmas second day and New Year's Day. The people from the countryside, because most of the Kwelbe band came from the country, all the estates had a Kwelbe band. My father used to play music. I don't remember my uncle, but my father used to play the mandolin, he used to play the guitar, and he used to play the banjo. My mother, grandmother days, my grandfather and my mother's side used to command quadrille. So you see where I get it from. And then we had organizations in Frederickstead, like Miss Christian, which is Bradley Christian's grandmother, who she had an organization named the Bright Hour Circle. Then we had the Unity Club. Then we had the Congregational Club. This was a club of women and men, and these had bluebird parties and stuff like that, and dress up, and so they used to have their masquerade going down the street also. We had the Clean Cutter Masqueraders, which my mother was in it. And then we had the Madras, and then they used to find the cans of vegetable, and on it used to have George dressing certain dresses with frills and stuff, and they would copy those dresses. They had seamstresses, and they would copy those dresses and dance in masquerade with them. So my mother made sure that I was tagged in along because she never leave her children home. So I used to have my little dress. So even as I grew older and I did a little bit of it, it was still not fully until I grew older. And then started to play music, started to dance masquerade. I make masks. How I came about to learn to make masks, it was somebody that I asked, and they keep putting me off. And I went to the university, and a lady there, she and I sat down, and she told me, brought in another lady and showed me how to cut the mask. And we still work together every now and again, which is Miss Jacobs. We used to work at the university. And anytime she have mask making, we work together. And so I go around making masks for the children. I did stuff at Claro Marco Beacon schools. Miss Bryson, if I want to call her, she's doing her best to continue because I've worked with her also. But they have to do with the parents. They have to be in control. And if I may close at saying this, the clothes that we wear are fully covered. And I don't think that parents or children in this era want their children to be fully clothed. They don't want to do a masquerade. They want to do everything else. I went so far as to make some masks, which the girls at the complex helped. Beautiful masks. But that year I was kind of under the weather. I'm sitting down, get the clothes made and everything. The children didn't show. I was so forlorn and disappointed that after all the work, both some teachers and I sat there. The children did the mask. They didn't want that. They went in another troop where they have, little nothings. And they rather that, and you can't force people to do what they don't want to do. So that's where it ends. They have to want to do it. The parents have to instill in them that even though you might like that, this is your culture. This is what my grandparents, and this culture is not here alone with the masquerade. It's all over. Because black people, even in Puerto Rico. But, like I say, masqueraders and makajumbis are the same. Except it's from the African village, and that's our heritage and custom that the people from Africa cover themselves fully at the way mask, because we cover sickness or chase away sickness. You don't hear too much about the masqueraders, but the makajumbis you hear a lot of, are we just as important, because we And the village is also protecting the villagers from sickness and that evil spirits don't come around. Same thing, except we are in the ground and we protect the villages. Okay, so I guess I protect in Frederick said village. Yeah, yeah.